let's do it. I'm a collector of words. One of my favourite books as a child was the dictionary, and my family have a love of witty wordplay. We use double meanings as comedy, find things, fitting song lyrics to prompt words over breakfast, and this I have come to realise is actually called hyperlexia, and it is my autistic brain collecting an overabundance of information. I was an Australian history major at uni, so the influence of stories across time has always been really interesting to me. In 2015, I came across the story of the 3 lost children of Daylesford, true story, and I gained access to the wonderful collection of historic documents gathered by the Historical Society in Daylesford and Yvonne Fix, who keeps a roadside memorial. In writing my play, Hollow, I absorbed that research in the collection, as well as various collections of art and fiction, like this piece by Frederick McCubbin, and found in those collections a colonial preoccupation with othering the native landscape and the people of our country, and a gaping hole where the mothers of the children should have been. My creative response was a play that depicted the events of that time in Daylesford, and filled in the scenes that no historical collection had records of, what the parents said to each other at home, how the boy's friend felt having been left behind, and what political machinations were going on behind the citywide search. By 2017, we were in production with an independent theatre company called Tripwire, and we partnered with local antique companies in Daylesford to source naturalistic props and photos. Our photos of our actors here, these are my actors. So these were taken in 2017, and we're inspired by the photos of the time from the 1860s. But it's never historical reenactment. It's always paired with stylised lighting design, original thematic music, bringing the theatre experience firmly into the now. We had near sell-out crowds at Daylesford Town Hall for our 4 performances, and Hollow, the play that I wrote, has become the latest in a long line of documents in the collection of the history about the 3 lost children of Daylesford. In 2021, I was working with an independent production company from Geelong called Skin of Our Teeth, who commissioned a series of monologues about women from history that you should have heard of, but probably haven't. And I directed a monologue about the artist Joy Hester. We used images of Joy, like the ones in the previous slide, to inspire the actors' movements in the space. The surrealist style of Hester's visual art bled into the theatrical style of the piece. We utilised techniques like transformation of character and soundscape to create an otherworldly feel in the performance. I also, in that same piece of work, wrote a piece about Elizabeth Gould, the wife of John Gould, the ornithologist. And I used his natural history books on birds, but also a historical fiction novel by Melissa Ashley called The Birdman's Wife, which was in turn inspired by a collection of Elizabeth Gould's letters home to England. The dilemma at the core of my writing was that of the artist mother, how to reconcile the drive to creative work with the love and sense of duty to her children. The monologue invoked Elizabeth's own collection, both literal and metaphorical, depicting around her masses of taxidermy specimens and sketches complete and in progress, and also the collection of her own guilt. My latest work, which is what you see on the screen here, is around another not so famous woman from history but should be, Ellen Young, the original Ballarat poetess. She is renowned for being a political poet during the gold rush, and her collection of poems is housed at the Eureka Centre after being gifted by her family to Ballarat libraries in the early 1900s. And I found her while Googling for myself, a woman Ballarat poetess, and I found her and thought, who's this person with my title? And then I was able to do a residency all about her work and how it inspires my work with the Seed Pod residency. The initial phase, I worked on finding compelling works from her collection that embodied the idea of women's voices being contested ground, alongside the story of Eureka as contested ground. I also looked at her chosen form, rhyming couplets, compared that with more modern styles of spoken word poetry, namely my own. I presented that work in progress as a performance of A Haunting of Myself as a Poet by Ellen, who was very unhappy with me. And I worked with my audience to actually collect their favourite line from her work, and we crafted a new, on-the-spot spoken word poem together and performed it aloud in a circle in the space, which was really cool. I've since worked on the next iteration of the Ballarat Poetess, which is now a solo performance work. It centres on my own journey of discovery of my poetic identity, alongside that of Ellen. The work is coming together as a collection of her politically charged and personally reflective poems, and also my own, under the umbrella title of the Ballarat Poetess, and what it means to hold that title, and how does one actually go about being the voice of the city. This is a photo of me in presentation of that work in progress, which was late last year at Eureka. And the audience feedback showed that people were actually really interested in process as much as product. So the sharing of how I used her collection is a big part of the actual performance, alongside the poetry itself. And people were really excited about the fact that I was embodying physically with my body Ellen's poems, body and voice. So it's really cool to be able to do that work. This is a photo of some people enjoying a collection of my poetry called Mightier. It's more politically charged poems like Ellen's, but just like her, it's not the only thing in my collection. Her collection actually is a lifelong journal of all the poems she wrote. She wrote a poem about a bee when she was 14, and it's in there, which is quite cool. But the thing about collections of poems is that they don't always measure the impact on the people in the life of the poet at the time. My latest collection is called Heirlooms. It will be dedicated to my father, who's pictured here. He passed away in 2023. The title work is from a poem that I wrote and performed at his memorial service, and it uses the metaphor of my inheritance of his extensive library to celebrate the intangible things that he also left me. It seems that all that's left are these ashes, in a wooden box in my swollen library, shelves weighed down with all that remains, their wisdom and humour, the music and laughter that still take up space, and a mountain of ink and paper heirlooms, dog-eared favourites and those half-read with a bookmark still inside, books you set aside, planned to read before you died but didn't, because time wasn't on our side. Thank you all so much.